So here we are. I would like to remind my viewers that she's coming from a more mental health or psychologist perspective. I'm coming from a more religious and martial artist perspective, and it's interesting where the two overlap, especially when both people are being honest. In this clip, I'm going to discuss the democratic society of the Igbos. I'm going to discuss the transcendent hero being above the king, since the Igbos traditionally had no king as such. I'm going to introduce you to the idea that not only in martial arts cultures, it is not only pervasive in the martial arts world, but specifically in Igbo culture. And Igbos and Angolans are some of the bells that ring the loudest in African American and African martial arts traditions in the Atlantic world. So bloodletting is taboo. That also reflects the nature of my challenge in honor and virtue. And four, I'm going to talk about the admiration of potential wives, and we'll hear a less religious woman's perspective, a psychologist's perspective on the matter. So now, I'm going to read to you several sections from the book. It shouldn't take more than a minute or so. You ready?
Yes.
Central to all contexts is the concept of honor, for the practitioner and often for the community through the honored practitioner. Mastery in either art, the Angolan percussive arts or the Biafran grappling arts, could bring a skilled practitioner respect for his graceful execution, the admiration of potential wives, and economic advancement. Each art provided a path of spiritual development that could take an exceptional adept to one of the highest forms of honor in Africa, the status of a transcendent hero. Someone who was initiated into full mastery of Ngolo could become a special kind of ancestor, one who could physically manifest in the bodies of his descendants. Similarly, the Biafran art of Umba and his cognates could serve as a tool to achieve the highest of honors. A master of the martial art, the Umba, who remained true to the accompanying moral code, could become a transcendent hero, the most honored of ancestors, who could be called upon for guidance in important matters, and could reincarnate among the living while retaining a position among the dead ancestors. In this sense, both Ngolo and Umba could be understood as martial arts, and more specifically as martial ways in the strict sense. This is from the book Fighting for Honor by Professor T.J. Dush Obi. So we go on. The next paragraph, this is page 12. It says, certainly many more whites were killed during the 1828 uprising of German and Irish mercenaries, who were mowed down in large numbers by the capoeira experts. So there's a history of actual combat here against armed people at that. We go to the next page. Page 13, the third paragraph. Now, listen very carefully here. This is key. Next, the Biafran grappling tradition is introduced, with particular focus on the leg wrapping style Mba wrestling of the Igbo people. Again, I don't do grappling, but I do percussive arts from an Igbo philosophy, and we'll get to that in a moment. The Biafran region was not marked by rule of monarchs. Rather, in this democratic society, people were ruled by religious custom. The widespread concept of omenani, or proper custom, portrayed the shedding of blood as a serious taboo, and thus the martial art developed somewhat distinct from other combat forms. I say it again. The widespread concept of omani, an Igbo concept, Igbo martial arts concept, or proper custom, portrayed the shedding of blood as a serious taboo. It goes on to say, more than 1.5 million women and men from the Bight of Biafra were enslaved and shipped to the Americas. So when you look at the capoeiristas, they were Angolans and Biafrans. Over 1.5 million of them were shipped. So who are the African Americans? They're partially Igbos. It is a great dishonor, and it is a racist perspective to use the argument that nobody knows who you are. Name one famous African martial artist in history. No one knows who we are. And we are the greatest martial artists in history. We are the people who migrated not only to America, but to Egypt, to southern Egypt, to Nekhen, and taught the world martial arts. And the first recorded martial arts took place in Beni Hassan in Egypt after Igbos and other African tribes marched to northern Egypt and conquered Upper Egypt with Horus, the war god, the sky god, as their main god, and taught the world martial arts and civilized the world, to then turn around and strip the descendant of Egypt, Nubia, and Biafra of his title. Not give him his rightful place is disgraceful. But now what I want you to weigh in on is the parallels of the Igbo society predating America. You know, Igbos had a democratic nation before America existed as such. And women used to admire great warriors. And the greatest warrior, logically, would have the most admiration. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, how is this different, or is it the same in modern day UK and America? What are your thoughts?
Okay. So my thoughts are, as a psychologist, so there's, in terms of martial arts, I would say that psychology has a lot of similarities in power and morality in common. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in the eyes of, let's say, for example, we have feminism. To many feminists, when they see, let's say, a strong man, a person who has great philosophy and uses martial arts to their advantage, they're almost like women are kind of sort of drawn to these kinds of men. And it kind of, you'd think that as a feminist, they wouldn't be drawn to such characteristics because they believe that women have the right to be equal. But there's something about a man who seems to be strong in appearance and strong in mind, and almost like gives a woman a feeling of safety. So I think, I mean, I can only compare it to that in terms of where we're going with this, if that makes sense.
Yes. Now you look at who had the admiration of potential wives back then and who has it now. Now that we live in a more materialistic society, they're trying to destroy customs and religions and morality and the accompanying moral code of martial arts and the philosophies associated with it or that accompany it. You know, what happens, you know, are women displaying superior judgment by conforming to this kind of immoral, depraved society that values treachery and ability to cheat the system to get rich, you know, in a man? You know, in other words, a man who can game the system and make himself rich in doing so, maybe even make himself the president, is more sought than a man who is a transcendent hero according to people's own cultures. You'll have Igbo women, for example, from my tribe, who would much prefer a rich man than a great martial artist. You know, what does that say about women?
I think it's not the case of what it says about women. I just think that it just describes society as in they want to not perceive men as these methodical kind of characters, almost historical. Because what we try to do in modern day society is um, base everything on what we can do as human beings. So on an equal level, regardless whether you're female or male. So it's really important to put it on as a measure. So we need to compare it to something. So women are likely to prefer a man with money based on the fact that there's comfort, superficial comfort. Whereas if you see a strong man um, who follows philosophy, morality, it kind of throws women off the kind of scale of understanding whether or not that man can actually provide those securities. So there's an imbalance. I mean, you will find some women who desire that in even a man with money, but they would rather go with something that's going to be superficially comfortable than somebody who can actually really physically protect them, if that makes sense, because they're made to feel that they can actually have the same physical attributes as somebody who's a male who's physically strong, if that makes sense.
Yes. Going back to the society, right? How they're trying to blur the line between the genders to create gender equality, correct?
That's right, yes.
And in doing so, are they not sacrificing the their their respective cultures' traditions, their racial traditions, and are they not sacrificing perhaps the most important member of society historically, the transcendent hero, because he's almost certainly going to be a man, and he's going to have a certain level of martial arts excellence and prowess. So, because of his physical prowess, which women, to say the least, will have great difficulty achieving anything similar to, he's being sacrificed. And who has vested interest but, you know, weaklings, nerds, people who can't perform physically or specifically, you know, in regards to the martial arts, as well as someone such as myself. So I'm being sacrificed in the name of eugenics at that, when you truly go deeper into this, you know, everyone like me, in favor of bootlicking cowards who are propped up as, you know, misrepresenting themselves as great martial artists daily, and nerds because they can't compete, and feminists and lesbians and gays, and everyone who supports a gender feminist agenda. So, in other words, we are sacrificing that which is sacred and true in favor of lies so that women could feel equal to men. Would you say that's correct?
Yes, I would.
Do you think that that is fair?
No, I don't think it's fair, but I do think it's the truth. There is a truth behind it. Obviously, we wouldn't say everybody's like that, but yes, majority.
And I think it's very sad because there's a lot of these people who are gender feminists and they want to talk about nature, right? That they're green, go green, and a lot of them want to twist religion and to make it more gender feminist friendly, more gay friendly, you know. And all these immoral liars want to deny me my rightful, traditional, and sacred place in society, which I would use to better society because of the accompanying moral code, the sacred morality that I adhere to. They are destroying morality, everything that is sacred, everything that makes a great man great, in exchange for this lie, the illusion of equality. Two things that can't be equal, nor should they be. A woman is a woman, a man is a man. They're destroying the family as well. They're pushing the abortion agenda, all this stuff just so they can feel equal. How selfish is that? How much does that scream inferior philosophy and inferior judgment? Any thoughts?
No, I just think that because we're pushed in a society of equality and rights, um, I think we lose the whole essence of morality and philosophy. The lines get very faded. So yeah, it's very. And then when you don't have clear kind of boundaries, and everything starts to intertwine, that's when you think things start become diluted. People lose sight of what the importance of things are, like females, gender, homosexuality. It's not that straightforward, but I do think it plays a big part in all this.
Yes. You also must realize that there are people who will think, oh, they'll oversimplify things. They're very simple minded or they're very disingenuous. And they will say,
Mm.
just because you're a great fighter doesn't mean women should throw themselves at you, or doesn't mean you're smart. I mean, I have 175 IQ. You know, if they want to take that simple argument, I could say, well, I'm the son of two doctors. I could have been anything I wanted to be. I chose the
Mm.
pursuit of virtue, just like Socrates said, the pursuit of virtue is greater than the pursuit of wealth. And I found the deepest levels of virtue in religion and in the martial arts and in my traditions, my cultural, tribal, and ethnic traditions, if you will.
Mm.
So, doesn't their argument pale in comparison to mine? This is probably why they don't try to really engage in any discourse or debate with me, because they know their argument is like a kindergartner's argument who only knows social norms and basic ideas, trying to engage with the top philosopher in a nation or something. I mean, they're not on my level, and their lifestyle screams that they're not on my level. This may sound cocky, but remember, if it's true and it needs to be said, we must say it, no matter how cocky it might sound. Obviously, if people came to my point of view, I would be very respected in society. But we must not forget that that is how it should be. That's how it always was. When we came to be, whether it was God or nature or whatever you might believe, we came naturally to the conclusion that the transcendent hero is the most honored of ancestors. It was greedy corporate crooks that taught society, using the media, banking, and schools and other methods, to value money, geeks,
Mm.
feminists, gays, thieves, tricksters, liars, and assorted criminals. Any thoughts?
No, I'm just basically thinking that as we have a culture where predominantly a lot of people are atheists, or they have their own beliefs of what religion is, it's almost like this elite group of people you're talking about. They seem to be like the new gods. So people have forgot what respect is, or and it's almost like they've created their own kind of power of becoming these demigods, that they can control society and demoralize those who sort of try to rise above them, really. So
And
such as yourself.
you only see controlled opposition pretending to go against them. It's like a superficial, weak, fake, you know, attempt to go against them. When you look at what these corporatists and these corporate kingpins and criminals actually believe, everything the Democratic Party is doing is consistent with the beliefs of the elite. Everything that the Republicans and the Libertarians are doing is consistent. It's as if all the corporate heads have come together and they represent every business in America and people who have the ability to destroy, to make or break businesses. And everyone is part of the workforce for this committee of corporate heads and executives and so on, right? And as such, they're forced to bootlick, to brown nose, to suck up to these people and to try to impress them to further their career and to enhance or increase their social status. And that to me is extremely disgusting. A bunch of counter-revolutionaries want to complain about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it when I am doing something so much more noble and respectable than what they're doing. But yet they want me to fall in line with their controlled opposition so I can accept third or fourth class citizenship. It is horrible. It is horrendous. It is grotesque. It is despicable. If you were in my shoes and you saw things the way I do, would you ever budge?
No, because I think it's really important you continue to be the individual you are. You stand by your human rights and you carry your fight.
You know, it's wow. You see these liberals talking about corporate America all the time. At least the Republic. Now remember, I didn't vote in the election. I don't like either side of the political spectrum. But it is particularly pernicious and detestable when I see liberals pretending to be against corporate America. When Ford Foundation, straight from corporate America, Ford Corporation, Ford Company, right? The Ford Foundation, straight from them, are giving them their marching orders. They're the ones pushing, this gender equality, this, gay rights agenda and so on and so forth. And then on the other side, you have a bunch of white nationalists and supremacists who, no matter what they say, one of the main characteristics of their agenda is this kind of pro-white, keep the white man above everyone else agenda, to conserve white power, to conserve oppression that enables people to maintain the white establishment and the white power structure. So nobody's on my side. They may know how I feel, but your enemies more often than not know how you feel. They might even feel the same way as I do. But if they're not willing to carry their cross and stand by me or get behind me and give me my rightful place unconditionally, without any demands, then they do not deserve to address me, much less make me any offers. Any thoughts on what I just said?
No, I completely agree with you.
Well, I think we should end it there unless you have any closing thoughts.
No, that's fine.
All right. Thank you. Oh, before I forget, in the last few interviews you've done, and all the interviews you'll ever do, right? You're telling the truth. I emphasize that you must tell the truth in my interviews, correct?
Yes.
So if you change what you're saying later to make me, that, and it ends up making me look bad, or, it's not an understandable correction, but it's something that directly contradicts your key points, that you're lying then and not now, right?
That's right.
All right, thank you.